This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to Spouses Talking Houses with husband and wife real estate team Jennifer and Brian Frost. Everything you want to know about buying, selling, investing, and owning property. So let's get real about real estate.
Welcome back to Spouses Talking Houses. I'm Brian, she's Jennifer.
And we are taping here in April 2020. Today we're going to get real about how do real estate agents get paid. We'll discuss how much realtors earn, who pays their fees, and how the income and expenses work. But first, I have a special quarantine version of the Newlywed Game. I've got a question.
Not my idea, by the way.
Not his idea. So, what chore does Jennifer go out of her way to avoid? And I'm going to write down what I think you're going to say. What chore do I go out of my way to avoid?
Vacuuming.
Vacuuming. That's what I wrote down. I thought you were going to say clean the toilet. I don't like to do that one either. I don't like to do any of them.
Okay, that'll be the last one we're doing of those. So.
Anyway, so let's just talk about realtors and how
do real estate agents get paid.
How do real estate agents get paid?
I wouldn't know, personally.
I know, I don't pay Brian. The money just gets deposited into the joint account. He has no idea.
So how does the typical agent get paid?
Yes, the non-Brian.
Yes.
So I'm going to start with the National Association of Realtors reports that the median gross in earnings were $41,800 in 2018 for your typical realtor. And that's going to depend on the number of transactions, the size of the transactions, and the split with their broker. The typical agent has 11 transactions a year. So if they are in a lower price point area or a higher price point area, or they do less sales or more sales, that's going to differ. We typically are doing 3 to 4 closings a month. And here it looks like the average is a little bit less than 1 a month. Real estate agents are independent contractors, 100% commission. You always hear that, right? So we behave as a small business. We have our expenses. There's no paycheck. Redfin is a model that had just come out where they did have some salaried agents who were working on salary plus bonus. And with the impact of the stay-at-home orders for COVID-19, they actually laid off their salaried agents. So that's a business model that I'm not sure how they're going to recover on that. You do also have some leasing agents or on-site sales agents who work for a property manager or developer who are on salary. But nearly 9 out of 10 real estate agents are independent contractors at their firms and on 100% commission.
And basically, it's the same with real estate appraisers. We're independent contractors. There are salaried appraisers working for some of the bigger firms, but most of us are independent contractors.
Yeah, it's just like your everyday painter or plumber or what have you. They're in business for themselves.
We're fee appraisers, so we charge a fee for an appraisal, and that's what we
get.
That's how we get paid.
Yeah. So the income that comes in is usually a commission, and it's usually a percentage of the sales price. It could be a flat fee, and there are some instances where it's a flat fee, but most of the time the model has been that it's a percentage. And that's determined by the listing agreement that the listing agent has with the seller of the property. And then also, if there is a buyer agency agreement, it's also set up in the buyer agency agreement. I'm looking at you, Brian, because you were going to say something here.
No.
Nope.
Got nothing.
I'm not going to use any specific numbers as far as commission rates because of the antitrust regulations. All commissions and fees are supposed to be negotiable. And obviously there's, certain amounts that the consumer's not going to pay, and there's certain amounts that the agent's not going to work for. So it kind of ends up falling in a range. And there is no standard fee. The other thing is that it's not legal, at least in New Hampshire and Massachusetts, to take a net listing. I can't have somebody call me up and be like, hey, I just inherited my parents' property. I want to get 200 out of it. Whatever you get over that is yours. Can't do that. That's not legal. The other thing is that you must be licensed in New Hampshire and Massachusetts and all the other states that I'm aware of, at least. But in order to earn a fee, you must be licensed, because we're dealing with consumers, we're dealing with property and housing, and we're dealing with money and finances. So in order to accept a fee, you've got to be licensed. And the fees actually can only be paid to the brokerages. So we work for a local Keller Williams office. That's our brokerage. And
Keller Williams Metropolitan.
Keller Williams Realty Metropolitan, yes. And my license is that of a broker, but I'm behaving as a salesperson because I've listed my license underneath the brokerage. What else was I going to say? Oh, the other thing about the fees is they have to be disclosed on the HUD statement or the ALTA statement, so that there can't be any under the table payments. Again, we're a regulated industry.
Same with the real estate appraisers. We're not basing our fees on any contingencies or whatnot. It's a flat fee. We're unbiased. Right. We come up with market value, and we're not influenced by any fee factors.
Right, exactly. I'll pay you XYZ if you bring it in, type of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what happens is that the listing agent will offer a cooperating fee in the multiple listing service. So from the transaction, there's a commission. There's one commission that goes to the listing brokerage and agent, and then they share it with the selling brokerage and agent. And typically there's no fees up front to the consumer. Typically when we list a property, we're not getting a check from the seller. When we go to show a property, we're not getting a check from the buyer. So there's no out-of-pocket cost for the buyer or the seller until the end, and then it gets paid out of the transaction.
So I should hire a buyer's agent then.
Well, yes, you should. So a buyer client is responsible for payment if they hire an agent. However, it comes out of the cooperating fee. And if there's any differential, the buyer promised to pay the agent X amount and the cooperating fee was Y amount, then they can go ahead and decide what they're going to do about that differential, if they're going to charge it, if they're going to waive it, if they're going to finance it, it's closing costs, what have you. It can't be financed, but it can be rolled into closing costs.
So when the fees are paid, the commission fees are paid, whose money is it? Who gets the money?
Yeah, we all talk about how the seller pays the commission, but the seller doesn't have any money to pay the commission till the buyer brings the money to the table. And the seller doesn't actually see it. It's all handled in that one transaction and comes off the top. So I feel like it's the transaction's money, and it's both the buyer's and the seller's money. And the buyers might as well get their money's worth out of it.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So now we're going to talk a little bit about, what happens after that gross income comes in and what some of the expenses and duties of the agents are. But before we do, I just wanted to check in with Ryan, Real Value Appraisal, to see what's been going on with the market here in our post-COVID state.
Sure. Well, I have a recap here of the week of April 21st, 2020. And these stats are for our local market area. I'm going to call it the Greater Derry, Manchester, Nashua area. I think it consists of about 10 communities here that we do most of our work in. But in the last 7 days, we've had 92 new listings, 69 closings, 129 properties put under contract, and business is
still going.
It's still going. I mean, we're not going to see the true effects of the COVID-19 pandemic for months to come. But right now, business is strong.
Yeah, what I'm seeing is that most of the properties that are closing this week, end of April, are properties that went under agreement from mid-March to now. So just pre-COVID, basically, were when those contracts were written. And soon we're going to start to see, as we go into May, we're going to start to see closings that happen post-COVID. There's not as many properties coming on the market. There's not as many buyers, but people it's housing. They have needs. They get married. They get divorced. They need bigger homes. They need smaller homes. They have job changes. They have financial changes. And so the housing market, it never actually fully stops. And I'm a little surprised at how active it has been.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of realtors that are reporting that a lot of their clients are either taking their houses off the market or waiting to put their houses on the market. And that's to be expected. But that also means it's a great opportunity if you are in the market for a home. You're not going to have as much competition as you did 2 months ago, or in the heat of a spring market as we had in 2019, where almost every property had multiple offers. We're still seeing multiple offers on some properties, but it's nothing like it was last spring.
Yeah, or even last month.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it definitely has changed. And we're just being very careful with masks and disinfectants and gloves and limiting the number of people that are in the house, limiting the number of visits to the house, that type of thing, and also staying in close contact with our lenders as far as changes regarding mortgage guidelines.
It's also changed the appraising field. I'm actually doing quite a few desktop appraisals for purchases where I'm not even driving by the property. I'm completely going by public records, MLS records, and of course, what listing agents and all the information they can provide.
And all our fancy 3D tours.
Sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, if you have 40 pictures of a property, you have a 3D tour. Of course, you're putting in a lot of language to protect yourself because you are actually inspecting the property. But I feel that most of these appraisals are really becoming they're accurate.
Okay, so we can move to the Caribbean and still sell real estate in New Hampshire and Mass.
We'll look into that.
I do still have to go out occasionally. Yeah. Anyway, so just to go back to realtor pay. So, how your realtor gets paid is when we sell a house.
How do I get paid?
Exactly. Brian still doesn't get paid. And so there's good and bad things about the 100% commission thing. Sometimes the impression that the public has is that agents are greedy and they just want to make the sale. I'm sure that's true in some cases. It's not been my attitude. My attitude is you're going to buy a house and it needs to be the right house for you. It doesn't matter to me which one it is. I'm just going to have conversations with you about whether this is a good fit for what you're looking for and what we see for resale down the road with it. And when you're going to sell a house, I just want to get you a good, solid buyer who's going to close and the best price possible. But, I'm not looking to put anybody in a house. It's your house. It's the roof over your head. I don't think you can buy something that you don't like. It doesn't make sense to me.
And my goal, of course, is I don't want you to overpay for a property.
Right. Yeah.
Although it seems like we've all been overpaying for properties for years, but
that's the market.
It's all relative.
Yeah. It's who is leverage in the market. It's been a seller's market.
But I do want to make sure that you're not grossly overpaying.
Yeah. And then the flip side of that, being 100% commission, means that agents who will hustle and will be responsive to their clients and be knowledgeable about their product and about their industry will do well and prosper. And so if you're coming into the business, it's a good business to get into because you are controlling your own destiny, so to speak. Speaking of destiny, sometimes there's no pay, not just for you. But so there's weeks that go by with no paycheck. Sometimes there's a month that goes by with no paycheck. I believe in the time that I've been selling, I've only had 2 years where I had a closing all 12 months of the year. So even though we tend to have a good, healthy amount of closings over the course of a year, it's not unusual to have them cluster into the summer months or to have a couple of things that are supposed to close in a certain month. Some of them go early and slide to the previous month. Some of them go late and slide to the next month. So you really have to get used to the fact that your paycheck is erratic.
Okay.
Yeah. So what are some of the expenses? So whether you're thinking of becoming an agent or whether you just want to know what your agent is doing with those fees, there's licensing, there's dues, you've got your office overhead, We have seen the business get more and more professional, and we hire out services to do things like professional photographers, stagers, showing service, transaction coordinators. There's websites, advertising, gas, training, and then, of course, taxes, income tax, self-employment tax, that type of thing. So the numbers can look inflated, but when you really get right down to it, they're not that high. Realtors with 16 years or more of experience had a median gross income, this is nationally from the National Association of Realtors, of $71,000. So that's higher than that average that we gave of the 41 and some change. And then realtors with 2 years or less experience had a median gross income of $9,300. It is a business that you need to build up. And I think real estate's like restaurants. If you make it 2 years, you're gonna make it. But you need to start off this business with at least 6 months of expenses in your savings account if you're going to go into real estate sales.
Yeah, and it's not an easy business. You have to have the right personality, temperament to make it in this business. So
yeah, you wear a lot of different hats too.
It's not just open the door.
Open the door and collect a check, right?
Exactly.
Another thing is that each individual agent splits with their brokerage. I talked about this a little bit before, and we generally choose what brokerage we work for. So the real estate companies don't compete so much for the consumer's business as they compete to get the best agents. And according to the NAR survey in 2017, 36% of realtors were compensated on a fixed commission split. So that meant that every time they had a sale, it was absolutely set what percentage the office got, what percentage the agent got. And then 23% were on a graduated commission split. That's the way that we work at Keller Williams. So each year you start out and you're paying a percentage to the office on your closings, but the more you close and the more you pay in, the less you pay to the office, and you drop down and you make more the better that you do. So it's an incentive system. The realtors and the whole real estate industry is a big part of the economy. There are 1.32 million members of the National Association of Realtors nationwide. And then in addition to that, there's a lot of ancillary businesses, the mortgage business, builders, contractors, plumbers, the title companies. So
everybody needs a place to live.
It's a basic need, it's a basic human need to have shelter. So
and that's why we've been essential during the COVID-19 stay-at-home order.
I know. I never really thought of that being essential until now.
Well, thank you.
So to summarize, agents get paid based on success. They get paid per transaction. They get paid on a split with the cooperating agent. So the listing side and the selling side split off the top, and then they split with their brokerage and pay their individual expenses. We are open for business, as you probably have noticed. If you'd like to hire us, we will go ahead and take good care of you and keep our germs to ourselves as best that we can. We hope you enjoyed this opportunity to get real about real estate. Please like, subscribe, and share Spouses Talking Houses with your friends, family, neighbors, and Zoom hosts. If you like this show, we'd be grateful if you leave a review. We listen to your feedback. And you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and your favorite podcatchers. Thanks.
Music courtesy of the Eric Lindbergh Trio. Please visit his website at www.ericlindberghworld.com. Jennifer and Brian are licensed to practice real estate in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. Brian is also a certified general appraiser in New Hampshire. They are not lawyers, accountants, home inspectors, or therapists. Real estate customs and rules may be different in your area. Each Keller Williams Realty office is independently owned and operated. The realtor name is trademarked to members of the National Association of Realtors. If you are currently under contract with a real estate agent, this is not intended as a solicitation. Views expressed on this podcast by Jennifer may not be shared by Brian and vice versa, nor are they necessarily the views of Keller Williams Realty.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21, Podcast Café, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.